Right then, it looks like we're good to go. I'm just going to double check to make sure that we are live, and then we will start this meeting with the election of chair. 1 second. Yeah, looks like we're all good. So, welcome to the Tenants Forum this evening. It being the first meeting of the municipal year, we need to elect a chair for this particular meeting and the rest of the municipal year. So can I seek any nominations for the position of chair, please?
David, I'd like to nominate Councillor Mark Rowley to continue as chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder for that? I think Councillor French got in there. So that's Councillor French seconding. Do we have any other nominees for the position of chair? Silence. Okay. So all those in favour of Councillor Rowley as chair for the municipal year? 1, 2. Yep, that looks fairly unanimous. We're pretty close there to unanimous. Councillor Rowley, if you'd like to take the virtual chair.
Thank you, everybody. The next item on the agenda is the election of deputy chair, but because this has to be done as a secret ballot for the tenants side of things, we're going to have to postpone that because obviously we can't do that in Zoom. So I think we're going to do it as a postal nomination. I'm getting a nod from John. So nomination papers will be sorted out and sent out so that we can arrange that for the next meeting if everyone's happy with that. Yeah, excellent. Okay. Next item, apologies. Have we got any apologies?
Just a one apology, Chair, from Councillor Tebbert, with Councillor Fairland acting as a substitute.
Thank you. No other apologies? No? Okay. Any declarations of interest? No? Okay. Minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of March. Is everyone happy that I signed those as a true record? That long ago. Yeah? Yeah, okay. I'm sure Callum will tell me how I do that later on. Any matters arising from the minutes? Maggie. You're on mute, Maggie.
Okay, is that better?
Yep.
Fantastic, thank you. It's just that I don't see another opportunity on the agenda to raise this. And I've just left the monitoring and audit meeting, which had an excellent presentation on homelessness and the use of voids, which was in the last minutes. And obviously much has moved on since last February. And the presentation that was given, as I say, to M&A, with the slides that Carly put up as well, was excellent. And I think it should be shared with the Tenants Forum as well, please.
Yeah,
Chair. Chair, Carly's actually doing a presentation for this agenda, so a lot of it might seem familiar to you.
all
Right, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from matters arising? You got anything, John? No? Okay.
Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah.
We were brought up the question of fly tipping on this March 1, and during the lockdown that seems to be got worse. The stuff in hedgerows, on sides of houses, there's no end of it about it. Seems to be a lot worse than what it was.
Yeah.
I know it's owner's responsibilities, but what can we do about cleaning it up?
Yeah, it wasn't helped that NCC closed the tips down, so
No.
people doing their garden and house projects suddenly had nowhere to dump the rubbish. So I think there was an uplift in unscrupulous people offering to take away waste and just dumping it. But hopefully that'll go down now that the recycling centres are all open again. But I haven't got any data to say whether it's gone down or not.
Yeah, Chair, if I can make a few comments. We do have quite a well-established mechanism where our colleagues in public services rather, that they run an operation where they target particular areas for surveillance, and they monitor the incidence of fly tipping, and they work quite closely with neighbourhood managers on that. So we're aware of particular issues. They do act proactively rather than just turn up and get the waste removed. But you're right, it's quite an issue all the time, and it's got worse.
Mhm. I think, yeah.
Can I just say something about the tips and that? Because I've had a lot of complaints about people queuing on that road. So lorries that have to deliver to the businesses on the lead into the tip, they're driving on the wrong side of the road because they don't want to wait in the queue, because it could be an hour, 2 hours, especially on a Wednesday. I've asked NCC what we can do about it. People are taking photos, and the tip are going out asking people, well, we're in the queue. I'm not sure what the tip people can do, but if anybody's got a chance to say to people, please don't go on a Wednesday, because that is their busiest time. And it says on the website, Wednesday is their busiest time, but I don't want to see an accident up there because people are having to go on the wrong side of the road. Thanks, Chair.
Any other matters arising? No. Okay. Any matters raised by Tenants Forum representatives? Although we only seem to have 3 tonight. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point, am I able to give my apologies and duck out now?
Okay. Cheers, David.
Thank you.
Are you
Good
going
night.
as well, Leslie?
Sorry.
I've seen you, James. Yeah. See you later, Leslie. You're on mute, James, bottom left-hand corner.
Or you can use the space bar, Councillor
Yeah,
Frank.
press the space bar.
Hold the space bar down.
James, if you hold the space bar down, that'll do the same thing. There you go. Hold it down while you're talking.
Space bar.
Is that the
That's it.
space bar?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Right, I'd just like to ask John for an update on the trout farms in Desborough. It's been going on now over 9.5 years, and it's causing a lot of concern still to the residents of the town.
With respect, Jim, but what's that got to do with the Tenants Forum?
Well, no, I said it's a lot to do with the tenants of Desborough. You know, I'll get asked on a regular basis what's going on, and I haven't got an answer for it.
Chair, I think this is a planning matter,
Yeah,
so
it
I
is
think probably that's the direction these
Jim?
matters should be.
Jim, can you send an email to James Wilson, and he'll give you an update?
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Or email me, and I'll get the update for you.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Okay, if we move on to the information items then. So, future Northants updates. John.
Thank you. There's a presentation that will appear magically. Any moment now.
Bear with me, John. I think Callum was expecting me to do it, and I was expecting Callum to do it. Right.
I've got it here, don't you worry.
You share away then, young Callum.
As soon as it decides to load.
If it's worth the wait. Just while it is coming up, just just tell you what I'm going to talk about. First of all, going to talk about the current timetable for Future Northants, what's happened recently and what are the main events in the months ahead. Then I'm going to look at the immediate issues that we're addressing as local housing authorities in Northamptonshire. And then I'm going to finish by looking at some of the design principles for the new housing service, which are reflected in a blueprint that was published at the end of last week. And it'd be interesting actually to hear what you guys think about it, rather than just listen to me, because the housing service will be your housing service. It'll be here for the long term. And it's important to reflect your priorities. Thank you. If we go on to the next slide. So the current timetable is that a shadow council was set up in May 2020, and this comprises councillors from the existing districts and boroughs, Corby, Wellingborough, East Northamptonshire and Kettering, plus county councillors for the north of the county. And at that time, the model that we were going to follow was to aim to be safe and legal plus by vesting day in April. And that means basically making sure that our customers are safe, making sure that the council is acting legally, and the plus is about if there are any opportunities to improve services, then we'll take those as well. And that's a more limited aim than before COVID, where we were looking for an element of transformation. But nevertheless, it's proven to be quite a challenging agenda. So what's happened this month is a new chief executive has been appointed. It's a guy called Rob Bridge, and he's currently chief executive of Welland Hatfield Council in Hertfordshire. And he should be starting work here in November. And the other thing happened at the end last week, the Future Northants programme team published a detailed blueprint for both the West Northamptonshire Council and North Northamptonshire Council. So it doesn't contain a structure as such, but it looks at the services that will be provided within each council. And of course, the housing officers are on this meeting. We're looking very, very carefully at the housing blueprint. So we can talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So what can we look forward to? Well, next month, a high-level structure for the new council will be agreed. So that's about the tiers immediately below the chief executive down to service head level. And that'll be, I think, when this all gets very real for us. Then in April next year, the new council goes live. Kettering Borough Council passes into history. And the following month, we have local elections for the new council. Next slide, please. So what are we doing at the moment? Well, these are the things that ourselves and our colleagues at the other North Northamptonshire councils are working on. First of all, we're looking to have a new Keyways allocation scheme for the joint council, and Carly has been working with her counterparts in putting that together, and that will be coming, I think, next time to Tenants Forum. So you've got an opportunity to be involved in that. Carly, I think, will say something about that later. We're also developing a new approach to managing rough sleepers. Again, I'll leave that to Carly. We're also looking to convert your tenancies from fixed term tenancies to secure tenancies. So actually, I think most of the people on the forum have secure tenancies, but tenants in the last 5 years or so have been given fixed term tenancies. And that was in anticipation of a change in the law that didn't happen. So what we'd like to do is to revert everyone to secure tenancies, which provide a higher degree of security of tenure. And that will be equivalent to the rights enjoyed by tenants at Corby. We're also looking at a new tenancy agreement for people who become tenants in the new authority after April. And we're looking to harmonise rent policies so that we use the same processes or we use one process for putting up rents in Corby and Kettering, for example, and we follow similar procedures for collecting rents and chasing arrears, for example. Beyond that, we're looking at updating key policies and procedures across the whole gamut of our activities, but particularly quite a lot of work going on repairs policies, so that we have a single set of standards applying across all Northamptonshire tenancies. And Dan is doing some work at the moment, making sure that our tradespersons have more flexible job descriptions and person specifications, so they're able to work across a range of functions. And our discussions with tradespeople who've been on a pilot scheme has been very positive. So we'll be looking to implement that before Kettering Borough Council goes out of business. We also have to do boring stuff like harmonising IT systems. And then finally, we're analysing North Northamptonshire's local housing market. So each of the council has a good idea of what's going on in its own housing market, but we're doing some work to paint a picture of North Northamptonshire as a whole, and that will form the basis of a new housing strategy in due course. Thank you. Right, thank you. Right, so the blueprint I mentioned before, it's a 99-page document, and if you're inclined, you'll be able to see it on the Future Northants website. The first thing to say is, I think in the content of the design principles, I don't think there's anything to worry about. I think we've had quite a bit of input into the process at quite an early stage, and it's good to see that stuff we've suggested many months ago has appeared in the design principles. So in terms of the principles that we're looking for, it's a service that's easily recognisable, that's easy for customers to engage with. A service with the capacity and the resources so it can work collaboratively with other organisations. I'll explain what those 2 points mean in a moment, or the significance of them. Also, a service that contributes positively to the achievement of wider aims, so better health, more community safety, more opportunities for education, which fit in with the model that we've followed. So, for example, with Life Plan, with our tenancy support, training opportunities, things like that. And then we're looking at a service that improves housing conditions and life chances. So we see a good home is sort of a springboard to a better life. And what we want to do is be quite ambitious in what the new service does. The reason I'm pleased about this is there is another model we could have followed, which is that you break up the housing function and you have a landlord function, and maybe strategy is somewhere else, like in planning, or repairs as part of a big technical department. And yeah, I've certainly worked in environments where all of that has happened. And I think the model we have at Kettering, where we're quite a big service, but it means we do have the capacity to do imaginative work as well as do the day-to-day work well. And I think one of the things I've noticed where you do have a fragmented service, all the officers' focus is on managing the boundary and the relationships with other bits of the service. We don't have that. We sort of work together and we're all clear that we're working towards the same objectives. Next, please. In the blueprint, they describe the services that will form the housing service on day one. And it's very much, in fact, identical to the model we follow at Kettering. So we manage council housing and we have teams dealing with housing strategy, with homelessness and the waiting list, and with private sector housing as well. So that is proposed in the blueprint. So again, a good thing to see. Thank you. And the next couple of slides are really just thoughts about the future ambitions for the service. What do we want to do? And I think, yeah, something I've suggested is that we work to ensure that all local people have the opportunity to live in safe, secure and affordable homes within thriving communities. So it's about the place you live. It's about that you can afford the place you live, you feel safe there, and actually when you go out the front door, your home's in a place where you're happy to live. Next slide, please. And linked to that, what would the new council want to do? Building new council housing, refurbishing older homes so that people in older homes can still live in modern, warm homes that are easy to that are easy to heat. And Homes for the Future would be an example of that. The third bullet point is about working closely with tenants and leaseholds, so you're fully involved in the management of your homes and neighbourhoods. So it's not, the service isn't something that gets done to you, it's something you can be involved in shaping. And then moving beyond being a landlord, working with housing associations, developing partnerships with reputable private landlords, and for disreputable private landlords, improving housing standards through education, and if necessary through enforcement. And then moving on to homelessness, taking an approach where we centre or focus on the person, what are their needs and how can we actually give them a solution that works for the longer term. And linked to that is supporting vulnerable people with specialist accommodation and tenancy support. And then finally, it's been innovative in constantly developing new solutions that reflect the challenges of a changing local housing market. Thank you. I think that's the last slide. Chair, very happy to take questions and hear people's views on what I've just said. Thank you.
Anyone got any questions or comments?
Just one.
Gloria, I'll come to you, Maggie and Andrew in a sec.
When we get the new format up and running, is the telephone service for the repairs going to be upgraded? Because at the moment you can wait half an hour to be answered, if not longer.
Right, well, that's obviously something we need to look at in terms of how the new council operates. I can feed that back into Future Northants because that's something that our customer services team look after. But yeah, okay, if that's not working, we need to see what we can do on response times.
Okay, thank you.
I've got Maggie, then Andrew, then Simon.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment really to say how pleased I am to see that we're getting rid of the fixed term tenancies and going back to secure tenancies. And that's going to be across the whole of the Northants new authority. I think that's brilliant news. Did I miss something about rent harmonisation, or has that not been looked at yet?
It's been, Chair, it's been looked at. I think the immediate priority is to make sure that our processes for the rent review next spring are harmonised. Not necessarily about playing around with the rents at this stage.
No, but there is a plan.
For next spring, there isn't a plan for harmonising. We've got to actually look at what the issues are involved in that. So, yeah, it's going back to safe and legal plus. It's actually, let's make sure the rent review next year is actually done legally. Right. And I know Mark and the finance people are looking at that, but yeah, I'm not envisaging at this stage any exercise where we're looking at what's the 2-bed in Corby and the 2-bed in Kettering and levelling them up. That might happen at some stage, but it's certainly not our priority.
Right.
If there's anything to be done, of course.
Yeah,
Sorry?
exactly.
If there's anything to be done, it may be that they're pretty standard anyway. I don't know what the rents comparisons are.
Chair, yeah, we had a look, sometime last year, and they weren't actually that different. Yeah, not hugely different. But we need to, a lot of it's down, it's quite technical stuff, how are rents actually calculated, for example. Councils can take different approaches. So I think what we need to do is, when the reorganisation takes place, is get behind the wiring and see how the rent's generated and what factors are used for generating them, and see what the implications of that. One thing, I can say though, is that if anything is envisaged at any stage, the first stopping point is Tenants Forum.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Chair, I can see Hamid has his hand raised. I don't know if he can actually hear us though.
Andrew?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I was concerned by the fact that we're going to have two systems with two boroughs, mixed boroughs that have council houses and two which don't. And I would hope that rent harmonisation will happen as the provision of council houses spreads across Northamptonshire. Is that the aim, or is it just about expansion in areas where there are already council houses?
Well, that'll be a decision. That'll be a decision for the new unitary to decide: A, is it going to build council houses? And B, where they are. But in terms of once the harmonisation of the rents is done, then that'll be for Northamptonshire. So if a house is built in Wellingborough, it'll be the same rents as Corby and Kettering.
Okay.
But nothing's been.
Chair, I think one of the factors would be where are the sites?
It's land.
Yeah.
That's the big problem at the moment, is we can't build that many more houses because we haven't got any spare land. And trying to buy land makes the viability of the site useless, because everyone wants full price for the land. So I believe Wellingborough's got quite a bit of land, so hopefully if they have, we can use that.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Simon.
Hello there, yeah, through you, Chair. I just wanted to ask, has there been any extra funding discussed from the government for the extra building of council houses or anything like that? And the other question that I wanted to ask was about because I'm still on a fixed term tenancy. So I was just wondering, is there a time scale or a time that you're looking at putting out the secured tenancies? Is there a sort of date that you're looking at? That was my second question. Any money?
The first question, money. The government last week announced a new affordable housing programme, and we're looking at the detail of that at the moment. But in fact, this afternoon I had a meeting with Homes England, with the government's agency for dealing with that, and certainly we were talking about one particular site where we're going to request some money from the government, and I think they were quite interested in it. So that's a site that's still in design at the moment. So the sites that we're developing at the moment, and Albert Street and Scott Road, got approved by Executive Committee earlier, last night, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they're being funded by borrowing and by right to buy receipts. So the right to buy receipts will only go so far, and then what we need is government funding to go with the borrowing. And so what we're going to do is give Homes England an information pack on that site and get them, start talking to us now. So we're going to do that. So there is some money around. I understand there has been an increase, but I think it's an increase from quite a low base. And the second thing, in terms of fixed term to secure tenancies, I think I saw Leona's finger going up. So
Thank you, John. Thank you, Chair. Our target to complete that is February next year.
February. Right, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say end of the KBC existence. That would have given you an extra month.
Yeah. Thank you, Leona, John, and Mark.
Okay. Hamid, had you got a question? Can you hear us? Hamid doesn't appear to have a
Are you talking? Is somebody talking to me?
No, Evelyn, but welcome.
Thank you.
Hamid had his hand up, but he's got no microphone on, so.
No, I wasn't saying anything.
Looks like we're good to carry on then, Chair.
Let's carry on. If he comes back, he can ask the question later. Any other questions for John? No? Okay. So tenancy services update, Leona.
Thank you, Chair. And I also have a presentation just to pop up as well. Thank you. Just wanted to give quite a brief summary tonight about a few of the key areas of our service delivery that we think are really important. So as you can see, letting our homes, getting the money in, supporting our tenants within their properties, keeping tenants involved, and managing our estate. So I'm just going to talk a little bit around those 5 topics this evening. So next slide is about letting our properties. Now, things have been a little different since the beginning of lockdown for everybody, but particularly in terms of letting our properties. Initially, we were really severely restricted in terms of our lettings. So as you can see on the graph here, those red bars towards the left of the graph are in the early weeks of lockdown. We were only statutorily allowed to let properties that were let in order to resolve homelessness. So we were letting a lot of properties as temporary accommodation in order to resolve immediate homelessness. Now, moving forward from June, we were able to let our properties in a socially distanced manner. So Keyways adverts restarted and our lettings to Keyways applicants increased. And those are the blue lines on the graph. We also had some direct lets that we approved as well, which are permitted through our allocation policy. And that was really in order to help people who were in temporary accommodation move through so that they had permanent homes in order to start getting settled into. Altogether, as you can see, we've actually had 155 new tenancies starting since the beginning of March. Now, 30 of those have been temporary tenancies, but 155 new tenancies, which is comparable to the same period last year, actually. Next slide, please. Now, the reason I want to talk a little bit about how we let our homes is because we had to comprehensively review our processes just to ensure that our staff and our applicants and all of our residents were kept as safe as possible. We had to do many risk assessments to reduce the risk of virus transmission. Now, you probably remember, because I've spoken to you quite a few times about this before, but we've got a 4-stage pre-tenancy process. So verification. Now, pre-COVID, what we would do is our neighbourhood managers would usually visit the applicant at home to carry out verification checks. So checks on the validity of the application, would also carry out an affordability assessment, look at income and expenditure, just to make sure that the property that they're going to be offered is right for them and is affordable for them so that they can sustain that tenancy. Clearly, that's not possible at the moment. So our verification process now is carried out over the phone, by email. It's amazing how, you know, our applicants and tenants are really working with us to enable us to verify applications. You know, we're having Zoom meetings, we are having information on the telephone, email, we're having photos sent, you know, so we can also use our own systems just to verify applications as well. So this process is, part of the process is still really essential because we have to satisfy ourselves, 1, that the application is valid, and 2, that accommodation is going to be affordable and sustainable. So that's a really important part of the process. Now, the viewing part of the process is probably a bit that's changed more than anything else, because this has been prescribed in government guidance. There's a very specific way in which we now have to carry out our accompanied viewings. They're still accompanied in that one of our housing team will attend the property. They'll open it up, they'll open all of the windows, and then they will allow the applicant to go in alone and walk throughout the property. And at no point are the housing team in the property at the same time as the prospective tenants. We attend with full PPE, so after the prospective tenants have left, we go in, we close it all up, and we sort of remove all of our PPE just to make sure that there's no risk of virus transmission. So it's very, very different. However, it has been very, very successful. We've been to sort of Tenants Forum quite a few times with information about how proud we are about our welcome meetings, how important it is for our new tenants to feel that they know about their responsibilities and they know all about the support that's available by us as a council. Now, that can't happen as a group meeting anymore, but what we are doing is we're sending out all of the information, preferably by email, so that the new tenants get all of the information. Then our neighbourhood managers are phoning every single new applicant to carry out a detailed one-to-one meeting over the phone. It's a bit more time consuming, actually, it's a lot more time consuming. However, again, for our neighbourhood managers, it's that relationship building, it's that first point of contact with new tenants, and we want to make sure that people still have the knowledge and the confidence in the neighbourhoods team. So because the welcome meeting is so detailed, it means that when we actually come to sign up, we have a very, very, very short interview period within the main council offices, 5 minutes, come in at an appointed time and to sign the tenancy agreement. So that's just far quicker and far less time that our staff are meeting with tenants face to face. Okay, next slide, please. With income collection, I wanted just to sort of go through some of the challenges really that the team are currently facing, and then we'll have a look at some of the performance information. As you probably all know, rent is still due. So our income officers have been really busy providing practical advice and support to tenants, mainly by phone and email. Universal credit is one of those huge challenges. Now, as we went into lockdown, we had just under 500 tenants in receipt of universal credit. At the end of August, this had increased to almost 800. So, and of those, there's almost 300 that have alternative payment arrangements. So they have been in such a level of arrears, i.e. 6 weeks of arrears, that we've been able to get a direct payment from universal credit. Now, arrears for those almost 700 tenants are over £300,000. And, you know, the vast majority of tenants in receipt of universal credit are in arrears with their rent at the moment. So that's one of the real challenges, and we're working really closely with not only the DWP, but every single tenant who's in receipt of universal credit, just to work through how we can make sure that those regular payments are coming through. We're also really closely working with 99 tenants who've specifically contacted us to say that they're in financial difficulty due to COVID-19. What we're doing is we're doing everything that we can to encourage people to pay absolutely as much as they can. As I said at the beginning, rent is still due, and that rent will be going onto a rent account. We want people to minimise the amount of debt that they're into when they're returning to work, just so that debt doesn't become unmanageable. The team have been really successful in working with this group of people to keep the arrears at a really quite a low level for this group. One of the other challenges, although it might be an opportunity, is enforcement. As you know, notice of seeking possession, notice periods have increased significantly, and we are currently not able to carry out evictions for rent arrears. The court system is incredibly busy. We haven't got any court cases in the system at the moment. Any court cases that we did have been adjourned and stayed or have been vacated by the court service. So if we want to reconvene those cases, we have to serve a reactivation notice. At the moment, what we're choosing to do is we're choosing to work really intensively with those people who are at the stage where we would normally be returning to court. And we are seeking agreements from tenants and working with them to look at reasonable agreements that we would be likely to get in court anyway. So that's all working really, really positively. And we currently don't have any evictions pending simply due to COVID-19. I think one of the real opportunities has been staff resources, because our staff have in the income team have all been working from home. We've been able to therefore stretch our working day, and we've found that by starting sometimes just a little bit earlier and working a little bit later in the day, our tenants have responded really positively to calls, and we've had more time to speak to people. So people that are working, we've been able to engage with far better. So next slide, please. And the graph here on income collection, you can see the maroon line that's just dipping down at the end shows that we, at the end of August, had arrears of just under £400,000. You can see that about a third of our tenants are currently in arrears. And this is about 50,000 higher than same time last year. But considering the debt of people who are paid in arrears through universal credit, I think, you know, we're incredibly proud of the work that our income team are doing to work with our tenants to really positively get in as much of the income as we possibly can. And next slide, please. Links nicely into supporting our tenants. Our neighbourhood team have been supporting tenants through our community hub. We've also been making calls to our more vulnerable tenants to offer help and support. Our tenancy support workers have had a staggering increase in the amount of tenants that they've been able to support. They've been able to support on average 121 customers a month since April, and that compares to 49 the same period last year. And this is because they are not visiting people at home. So what they're doing is the amount of time that they're saving in terms of sort of like abortive visits, traveling, they are communicating with people in ways that people are really happy and comfortable with. So by text, by phone, by email, and people have provided really positive feedback, and people have engaged really well in those ways. So that's a real lesson for us, and that actually if we can provide a greater service by being more flexible and providing a service in a different way, then that's a method for us to continue in the future. Now, our life plan service, our life plan office is currently looking at new ways of delivering the service. So we're designing some training courses to be run via Zoom so that our free training courses can be opened up again to a much wider group of people. Our sheltered accommodation schemes, scheme managers throughout this crisis have been contacting all of our residents remotely in line with their specific care plans. But our scheme managers are now back on scheme 3 days a week, having regular contact with residents in a socially distanced way, and our cleaners are back on scheme as well. And we've just had incredibly positive feedback from the residents who are very pleased to have some familiar faces back on scheme. And next slide. So one of our priorities is always to keep tenants involved. Now it's been very different, but here we have our Tenants Forum via Zoom. Our Tenants Overview and Scrutiny panel have actually been meeting in different ways, but more often. So we've been having weekly updates for the Overview and Scrutiny panel, with the performance information being presented still for weekly. So there's just a slight sort of variation on that. And members of our Overview and Scrutiny panel are also going to be working on the Homes for the Future communication literature as well. We've still been producing Connect and our Civil Service Matters newsletter. And Tracy has still been communicating with all of our involved tenants via e-news if they've opted into that scheme. And our estate and block inspection feedback has been requested as well. So if any tenant wants their neighbourhood manager to look at a specific area, then that channel's been open, so that, you know, unfortunately we can't do joint estate and block inspections, but we can certainly be directed by our residents. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I think the biggie is managing our estate. So I said at the beginning, since April, the team have verified, viewed and carried out lettings on sort of 150 new tenancies. It's one of our priorities, getting people into a home, reducing voids and making sure that those tenancies are sustainable. Our neighbourhood managers are also now working in more agile ways. They are mainly working from home, although we also do have a team working in the office. But we are carrying out essential visits only and carrying out the rest of the neighbourhood management service remotely. But we are carrying out all estate inspections and block inspections to make sure that there are no hazards and that we're still complying with our sterile block policies. The ASB team have also been incredibly busy. They've had over 150 cases of ASB so far since April, and they actually had more cases to deal with in the first 4 months of this financial year than they had in the whole of last financial year. So that's just the sort of like the level of busyness that the team have been working on. And they've had to be a lot more innovative because of the lack of legal options, because of the difficulty getting access to the court service. They've had to sort of look at more innovative solutions and just work in a sort of much greater extent with our partners. Now, current trends are complaints relating to noise and cannabis odour. And the team have also been really busy working with the proactive policing and community policing teams to respond both to the upsurging county lines in the borough and also to inform and remind tenants of the need to comply with social distancing. So that's been quite a component of their work as well. And finally, and it looks like a very small orange box there, doesn't it? But preparing for North Northamptonshire is really key to the work that the team are doing. And one of the critical things for that, as John mentioned earlier, is the conversion of our fixed term tenancies to secure. And as I said, the deadline for that is February, just to enable us to be absolutely prepared for April 2021. I believe that's my last slide, but I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you, Chair.
Anyone got any questions? Andrew?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Leona, for a great presentation. Could I just make sure I'm right? £400,000 in arrears, and a third of your tenants are in arrears. Is that right?
Through you, Chair, a third of tenants owe at least £0.01. Yeah, at least, yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could tell us typically what that meant for an individual. Does it mean they're 1 month behind, 2 months behind, or 6 months behind?
Through you, Chair, the whole raft, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
A lot of our recipients of universal credit are between 4 and 5 weeks behind.
Right.
We have an incredibly small number of people who are much more behind than that, but a lot of people will fall into the sort of 2, 3, 4 weeks in arrears because of either direct debits or universal credit payments.
Yeah, it sounded terrible, and it's probably not as bad as it sounded at the time. So thanks for that
clarification. If you work out the average works out about £330 per person in arrears. It isn't that, but that would be an average.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Anyone else? Hamid, if you wanted to ask a question, you've actually got the camera pointing at your TV at the moment, so we can't actually see you. Maggie?
Thank you, Chair. Not a question, but a comment on the amazing work that the teams are doing. Like we spoke earlier on in M&A and everything, and earlier on in the other meeting, I can't remember which one it was now, but joint consultative, that was it. There is some amazing work been going on by our staff at all levels, from the the environmental care team, and obviously all the housing managers and neighbourhood managers. Absolutely amazing in such really, really challenging circumstances for both the residents and staff. So just congratulations and well done.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll pass that on to all of the team. I'm sure John will pass that on to the team.
Thank you.
Maggie, as per usual, you've stolen my thunder.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, if on behalf of the forum, can you thank all the staff and officers on our behalf? They're doing an excellent job, and it's really appreciated.
Amazing.
Thank you. I'll certainly do that, and yeah, they'll be really pleased that the hard work they put in is recognised. It means a lot to them.
And appreciated.
Yeah, and it is appreciated. Yeah.
Thank you.
By all councillors, I'd say. Getting nods from the three we've got here. Yeah, any other questions or comments? No? Okay. Thank you, Leona. So, property services update. Dan, where's he gone?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I too have a presentation, so I'll just let Callum bring that up. Okay, so very much following the format of Leona, and wanting to give you an update on some of the key areas that we've been working on through lockdown tonight. So can I have the next slide, please, Callum? Thank you. So no particular order. Wanted to start with compliance. So this was an area that we got hit hard with when the lockdown happened. We do, on average, 25 landlord gas safety certificate inspections a day. And there was a little bit of a sort of like initial reluctance to let us in. We also had 2 members of our gas team that had to go into self-isolation due to their health conditions. So we did suffer quite a dip in our gas team initially. Now, the current situation as of the 1st of September, we're currently at 99.52%, and we just have 18 properties at the moment without a valid certificate, and we're going through a process to get that certificate at the moment. When we started lockdown, for example, on the 8th of April, that figure was at 96%. So sort of 3.5% lower than where we are now, and the number of properties that were affected as a result was 141. So in that 5-month period there, we've actually managed to sort of recover, and we're actually above average. HQN that we're members of recently circulated a paper, and the average for members of HQN is 98.4. So we've really done well there to do that. Something else we're trying to do at the moment is we currently been operating with a 12-month servicing program, which means we do servicing all year round. So there's always some properties that need to be serviced. What we're actually trying to do now is move to a 10-month program, which means that in the future, we won't need to service in December and January. So we're trying to get ahead of the game. That brings us some capacity to respond to breakdowns at the more busier times of the year. Also, if there is any further lockdown, we hope to be in a position where we're actually ahead of the curve this time. So in a much better position. So we've actually been putting a lot of effort into doing more than what we would normally do, so we can keep ahead of that. So can I have the next slide, please, Callum? And this graph just shows how things went. So at the start of lockdown there, you can see where our percentage was hovering around about the 98% mark. And then it drops. So as the blue line drops, you'll see the orange line goes up. So the orange line is the number of properties without a certificate. And then what you'll see there from around about June time onwards, the curve is very much picked up, and we've been pretty steady now for some time. So it just shows how quickly really we were able to recover and make the most of what could have been a bad situation with the COVID restrictions that were placed on us. Next slide, please. We've also started our electrical installation program, where we basically go out and test the electrics in tenanted properties. Now that did start a bit later than again we would have liked due to COVID, but we managed to get started on that in July. And we've also been able to do that by utilising in-house labour within our electrician team. That's focused on the Highfield Road area, and the first focus is on the blocks on the Highfield Road area. So if anyone is in one of the blocks on Highfield Road, you may have already been contacted to arrange for that inspection. And then what we do as a result of that is if the condition report identifies any works that are required, then we deliver those system upgrades at the same time. So that's us investing in our electrical installations through that process. Something else we've also been doing is a smoke detector upgrade program. That's linked to the gas servicing. So when we service someone's boiler now, we also check the smoke detectors in the property. Smoke detectors typically have a 10-year lifespan on them. So if we're finding any that are now out of date, we're replacing those. And we've replaced 765 smoke detectors so far since we started that, again, as we started to come out of some of the lockdown restrictions. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so moving on to responsive repairs. I think this is probably the area that is suffered the most as a result of COVID. We had to stop all but emergency repairs to the inside of tenants' homes when the lockdown came. So in terms of responsive repairs, we were only really responsive repairs we could do that weren't an emergency, that meant we had to go into someone's house. So something like a leak, for example, was repairs to external jobs, such as fencing works, gates, things like that. So you may have seen some of our operatives out and about on the estates doing work like that, but the amount of work that we were doing in tenants' houses virtually stopped. As a result, we've currently got about 1,300 jobs that we are awaiting dispatch for across the variety of different trades that we've got. And we're currently conducting a bit of a data cleansing exercise to ensure we've got no duplication of jobs. What we've noticed is people may have phoned in a job prior to lockdown, and then they may have thought, oh, that's not happened, so I'll phone it in again. So at the moment, we need to just be sure that those 1,300 jobs are all individual jobs and we haven't got repetition. So that's a bit of a focus that the team are looking at the moment. So by next month, we should be in a position where we'll know exactly what number of jobs we've got, and also what the plan will be then to start to start up the responsive repairs program a bit more in people's properties. The current number of properties with no heating or hot water as of the 1st of September was 12. Again, on the 22nd of April, that was 43. So again, we've managed to keep on top of that. And the other thing I'd say is the number doesn't tell the whole story. It's the length of time. Most of these properties now, they're coming in, it's a snapshot at a point in time. And those properties are coming in, they're not sat with us for a long time. They're coming in and within a matter of days, we're going out and seeing them and then ordering parts and going back out and repairing them where we can. So that number is, again, like the servicing, stayed very low now for some time. We actually had a week where we didn't have any properties without heating or hot water about a month ago. So again, the team have done really well to keep on top of things like that. And I think as well, the tenants have been good in that they've allowed us to come in and fix these sort of problems, even with the restrictions. So that's worked well as well. Okay, can I have the next slide? Void. So at the start of lockdown, because we couldn't do the work into side of tenants' homes, what we decided was to redeploy our responsive repairs operatives onto our void properties. Meaning they could carry on working in isolation. So we were very fortunate. We only lost a very small number of operatives who had to self-isolate, and all the operatives that didn't were more than willing to carry on working in void properties where they could maintain isolation. So we were able to continue work on properties, albeit void properties, throughout that lockdown period. So at the start of the lockdown, we had 82 void properties that weren't ready to let. We actually got that right down to 36 by the 11th of May. So, really good effort by the team there. And a lot of those properties were used to house then people that were homeless. So it was a really worthy cause that the operatives were working on. What we have found, though, is things have started to grow. Now, as Leon and the team have been doing such a great job letting properties, some of the knock-on impact of that is there's a lot of transfers and moves from people that were in temporary accommodation into permanent accommodation. So in the last 3 weeks alone, we've seen a real rise in the number of keys coming in. So although we're returning void properties at a reasonable rate, we can't keep up with the current spike that we've got. So the number of void properties has actually grown back up now to 70 properties that aren't ready to let. But that has grown rapidly in just the last 3 weeks. Something else we've done with regards to voids, some of you may remember that previously we've used a contractor on what we call the larger voids. So they're the voids that need an awful lot of work, typically new kitchen, bathroom, rewiring. So we ended that arrangement at the end of last year with the contracts that we had. And initially we were thinking about doing something similar, and then obviously COVID came along. And I think getting the voids down to where they were gave us the opportunity to say, actually, we could do this ourselves rather than put this out to a contractor. So we piloted we piloted taking on 4 extra staff and created what we've called a larger voids team. And we gave them 16 properties that we would have given to a contractor and said, look, this is a project. We think this will take about 3 to 4 months to do. Let's see how you go. Now, where we were as of the 16th of September, 10 of those 16 have been returned. So we're going to be around about the target we set them of 3 to 4 months to get them finished. I think the other thing we're finding, and I'm getting some analysis done of this, is we're doing them on average quicker than what a contractor was doing, and I think we're getting better value for money out of it as well. So I've been really pleased with how that project's worked since we started it. Can I have the next slide, please? Give you an example of a particular property where we've put this team. Grange Road was a 3-bedroom house, and the works required in that property was a new kitchen, new bathroom, full rewire, extensive plastering, full redecoration, and a garden clearance. So the team that we put on that job completed all those works within 16 working days, so a fraction over 3 weeks that they were working on it. And if we go on to the next slide, you can see a couple of before and after photos. So new kitchen that was put into the property. And then the next one's the bathroom. So again, just showing the new bathroom suite that was fitted there as well. I did have lots of other photos, but it's hard sometimes to get the full picture of it without having been in the property. But what you can't see as well is it wasn't as simple as just removing the wallpaper and decorating. Nearly every room had to be replastered. So full replastering pretty much, and then decorating on top of that new plaster and replacing things like the toilet and sink and bath in the property as well. So if you want to move on to the next slide, thank you. Right, the next area is the capital programme, which historically we talk about every month at this forum, and we haven't because we haven't been having them. But you've all had the asset management report for the month, and we'll be back to sort of reporting on those at the Tenants Forum going forward. I think, again, just to pull some of the headlines out of the report in this presentation. Since April, we made the decision that we didn't want to use a contractor this year to deliver our boiler replacement programme. We wanted to do that in-house. So we actually scaled the team back up to where it had been in previous years. And like I said, decided we wanted to deliver that programme. So one of the decisions we made, as well as dealing with the ad hoc boilers that we have to replace when they're past the end of their working life, we wanted to focus on replacing a brand of boiler that's now obsolete, and that can cause issues with sourcing parts. So many of those boilers were in Burton Latter, and then the remainder were in various locations across the borough. And we set a target with the budget that we have for the capital programme to hit 300 boilers by the end of March. Now, obviously, COVID again put a delay on starting that, but we were able to get started in sort of the late spring, early summer. And I think if you go on to the next slide, please, Callum. This gives you a flavour of how well the team have done this year. So if you look at the number of boilers that we have fitted in just the 5 months, and like I said, we were only doing the ad hoc breakdowns to start with, not any of the planned ones. We'd already fitted 203 by the end of August. Now that puts us well on track to get to 300, and if budget allows, hopefully we might be able to squeeze a few more out of that budget as well. And as you'll see, that's going to mean we'll have installed more boilers this year than any other year, and that's against the backdrop of COVID and the first year of doing it in-house for 2 or 3 years. So again, I think the team have done a fantastic job there with regards to this programme. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? The other areas of the capital programme, COVID has caused us significant delays. We had jobs that we were putting out to tender, and because the companies that were going to be quoting were furloughing staff, we had to extend those periods of tender for a lot longer than normal, which has meant that we've had knock-on delays. Some of you will know we also looked and got the capital programme reallocated around a little bit, so we had more money in some of the projects that were external based as opposed to internal. Meaning that we would be able to carry on working on projects even if there were further lockdown measures that were put in place. So that new programme was approved at June's exec committee, and then the team have been working hard since then to get the contracts in place. So I've already talked to you about how voids and heating upgrades and electrical work's been undertaken in-house. Roof renewals, door entry systems, external door replacements, external wall insulation, fire risk assessments all have contractors procured and awarded, and are at different stages in terms of the progress they've made. For example, roof renewals, we had a contract already with the company doing that for this year, and they got started as soon as the government said they could towards the end of May. So the roof renewal programme has been going on, and that's one of the programmes that's going to be extended with the adjustment of the budget. So for example, Pikeshire Road Estate, and then we're moving into Burton Latimer is the next area with the roof replacements. Homes for Future was at Executive Committee last night for approval, and understand that was approved. So we'll very shortly be in a position where we can announce the successful contractor on that, and hopefully get started with some work on site as soon as we possibly can, and mobilise the contractor that's got that. We are in a fortunate position. As you know, there's 4 properties in Desborough that are going to be finished, and then 8 in Rothwell that we're expecting to be able to do out of this year's budget. 4 of the properties in total, 2 in Desborough and 2 in Rothwell, are already void. So we've got 4 properties we can get straight into without having to worry about all the tenant removals that we'd need to organise. So we should be in a position to hit the ground quickly. And what that also then means is we will have 2 properties in Desborough that we'll be able to decant the remaining 2 tenants to, and then 2 properties in Rothwell, meaning we can do the first 2 tenants in Rothwell as soon as we've got those done. So we're going to see how many we can get done before the end of Kettering Borough Council, and you know, see if we can get there. But the COVID restrictions have really hit Homes for the Future hard. We would have wanted to really be on site on that project a lot earlier than what we're going to be. And then the final capital programmes, kitchens and bathrooms, hidden homes and Sparkle, are just finishing off the procurement there, and we should be in a position to look at contract awards on those next month. So hopefully by next month we'll know who's going to be doing all of the different projects that we've got. And then finally, just say Hamilton House is expected to be completed this month. The main contractor Lovells finished last month. We are just waiting on the commission of the heating system at the moment. There have been 1 or 2 delays there with parts coming in from out of the country, and a bit of a backlog in those parts where they're being manufactured. So that as a result of that, we've had more delays on the heating system than what we were expecting. But we're working very closely with our heating contractor to try and get that completed as soon as possible, and get tenants into their new homes there as soon as we possibly can. So again, hopefully we'll be looking at that next month. Can I have the next slide, please? And then just one final area. It's not something we really talk about a lot, but I just wanted to just touch on this, because I think COVID has really highlighted the importance of having our own internal stores and also a workshop. One of the things we're able to do with having the stores, we're able to maintain a supply of parts and materials. So as well as having operatives that we're able to continue working, the other key part of being able to deliver things was actually having materials. An awful lot of suppliers shut their doors, and the ones that stayed open started to struggle with getting the supplies from them. So for example, at one point we were searching anywhere we could find to get paint so that we could finish voids off. So it was an awful lot of work to try and get that. But what we found that the advantage we had, as opposed to not operating the stores and maybe having an arrangement with a company to provide all of that, is we have a buffer of stock because of our stores. We carry a certain amount of stock, and that meant we were able to carry on and then search for new suppliers whilst we were using the stock that we had on the shelves. We used a variety of different suppliers, again, to try and make sure we didn't run out of parts or materials, especially where the regular suppliers weren't open or didn't have that stock. And also our workshop, again, we're able to produce an awful lot of bespoke and made-to-measure items, such as gates, from raw timber. So again, we're not relying on a factory producing that item. As long as we could get the raw timber, we were able to then turn it into what we needed. And the other thing you may have seen, there's an awful lot of Perspex screens around the council buildings now. They were all made in that workshop as well. And again, we got in early and ordered an awful lot of Perspex, and you couldn't get Perspex a few months ago for love nor money. So again, getting that order in and being able to do what we wanted with it is really, really been beneficial to the council overall. Okay, and I think that's the last one, Callum. So thank you.
Thanks for that, Dan. I've got 2 points before let everyone else join in. It's good to see with the gas boilers. Certainly, you're doing a hell of a lot better than British Gas, because my boiler's been intermittent for the last month and a half, and they're going to finally turn up on Monday for the second attempt at fixing it.
Yeah.
Some feedback for the void work on Grange Road, because I get an update from the neighbour every now and again when I see him walking his dog, how courteous and efficient the guys are. So again, well done, guys, and if you can pass that back to your voids team that they're doing a good job, that'd be good.
Yeah, certainly, Chair. Thank you.
So, Simon. Yeah, see you, Maggie.
Hello, Dan. Yeah, I was just wondering, with the stock condition programme, buddy, I was just wondering if that's still going ahead, because we had people come out and they had a look at some of the boilers, but some of the people that had letters, they haven't been and had a look at the boilers, I've been told. So,
okay.
But they're in the same area, if you see what I mean. So I'm not sure what their scheduling is.
Yeah. Sorry, through you, Chair. There's a couple of things we've been doing. Do you have oil boilers in your area?
Yeah, we're all oil boilers, you see.
Yeah. Now, as far as I know, what we've got is we've been looking at all the oil boilers, because that is something we don't have the in-house skills to deal with. So we did employ a contractor to come out and do a survey of all the oil boilers we've got. We've got less than 100, so it's not a lot. As far as I know, everyone with an oil boiler was written to and offered an appointment, and we'd got into a very high percentage of those. So I don't know whether there's somebody that's been missed. So what I'll do, I'll take that away. Is it specifically in your area of Weston by Welland that you know of people?
Yeah, there's two, I believe. I've been missed, and there was I think there was another neighbour. I'll check with John tomorrow at number 5.
Okay. Yeah. I'll certainly take that away and look into that. But like I said, as far as I know, everyone with an oil boiler should have received a survey.
Yeah, I know that with the oil boilers, a lot of them were getting old. A lot of them have had to be replaced. Obviously, a lot of them need parts every year.
Yeah.
So, but the oil boilers seem to have got a bit sort of put on the side, if you know what I mean.
This is the idea of the project. What we wanted to do was get a bit of a stock take. What's the situation of all our oil boilers? And we asked the contractor to do a bit of a sort of traffic light system around, what he thought would be the situation with them in terms of how urgent it would be to think about it. And then what we can do is plan those in the same way we do our gas boilers. So that's the logic behind what we've done. So I'll certainly double check around the Weston by Welland properties that might have been missed.
Also, with the tanks and the piping, I've noticed with several of the neighbours, including mine, where the oil tanks are, the copper piping that comes out is often covered in oil. So whether there's small leaks, I mean, they've been there for years. So
yeah, that's another part of the process. So
Yeah.
yeah, we've asked it, not just the boiler, the whole system, so that we've got all that information. So let me take that away and find out which ones got missed, and double check that Weston by Welland isn't a particular area that got missed.
No, that's great stuff. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers for that.
Maggie?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, can I second your appreciation to all the guys working so hard, like we've been talking earlier on about. Almost every team across the council has really pulled through this in an amazing manner. My concern, I suppose, is having achieved all this and making a real impact on moving forward with, particularly with the boilers and the capital programme, etc. I don't want it to be lost as we move into North Hants. Is there going to be some sort of process to move all that forward into the new authority so that our best practice is not lost?
Hopefully.
Okay. Are we working towards it?
Yeah, Chair, one of the things we're doing is working particularly closely with Corby at the moment on how they manage their landlord services. It's quite interesting. There are lots of similarities, but there are also some significant differences. So, for example, one obvious one is we've got stores and they haven't. And, you know, we found the stores have really come into their own as part of this process. So, yeah, we'd be very keen that the new authority has stores. And I know Dan's had meetings with colleagues over in Corby, and I think there's some enthusiasm for that idea there. So there'll be some things Corby do that are better than us as well, maybe. And
who tell?
Who can tell? Yeah, and I'm sure there are. Yeah, I think both sides, both ourselves and Corby, we've gone through a process of getting to know each other and working together. And I don't think, yeah, what works best? Let's put it over the new authority. That'll take a bit of time, but I think we've got a lot of good stuff that happens here. And yeah, we'd be loath to say goodbye to it. And to be honest, I think it's our job to make sure that we don't undersell it and it's part of the new setup. And I think part of that is that, yeah, my presentation is talking about our ambitions and about the things we'll do. That's very much the way Kettering Borough Council operates. So if the new service is modelled on that, I don't have a fear that this is all going to be lost.
Yeah. One of the benefits we've also got is the shadow portfolio holder is Councillor Russell Roberts. So we've got the added benefit of Russell moving the portfolio along. One thing that we didn't mention in future North Hants update is that with the appointment of the new chief exec and the 4 officers that are recommendations coming forward tomorrow night, the interim chief exec and the interim monitoring officer have resigned, and the replacements in the meantime are going to be our Graham Soulsby and Martin Hammond. So moving forward, we might be accused in the shadow of being the Kettering, we're trying to take over and be Kettering Borough Council, but we're not. No one else would do it. Our officers would do it. So we're moving forward and keeping it going. But as a byproduct, it does mean that anything good in KBC is going to be pushed front and centre as, right, that's the best model we've got, try and beat it. So everything that Leona and the teams, Dan and the teams are all doing, hopefully, will be front and centre with John there to make sure that that is what we do moving forward, and we don't have people who haven't got experience of council houses saying, oh no, we should be doing this.
Yeah, that's the worry with East North Hants and Wellingborough, of course.
It is, but they did, certainly Wellingborough did have council housing up until what, 2014 was it? So any older officers there might have experience, but we've just got to make sure that we do put forward the best possible solution for our residents and stand firm and make sure it gets there.
Yeah, I think that's the important part, Chair, that we've got to be standing side by side with our residents to fight for their continuity of service.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Andrew, and then Evelyn, then Simon again.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm sure I've mentioned in the past carbon monoxide monitors. Is there a reason you don't put them in when you change your boiler, say? And the other thing, something came up about hidden homes, and I hadn't a clue what you were talking about. So let me know what that was. Trouble is, you see, with the screen in front of me, I actually see what's on the screen, and it's all very different experience. Thank you.
Through you, Chair.
Yeah.
Firstly, hidden homes. That is the project to turn the two former warden flats, stroke houses, in St Andrew's Court and Harry Potter House, I think it is, into each one into two flats for tenants. So we will lose those two properties that are no longer used by our scheme managers, and we'll gain 4 new properties into the rental income and into the schemes in general. I don't know historically about the carbon monoxide detector. I don't think that's something I remember being discussed before, but it's not something we do routinely. Something we did do though is when we had the problem where we weren't able to get in because people weren't allowing us in to do the gas service, one of the things we did do was actually drop off a carbon monoxide detector as a little insurance policy to say, look, you're not letting us in at the moment to do the service. That's fine, we understand that. However, please find a carbon monoxide detector here, which we would encourage you to use as a bit of an insurance in case there is a problem. So that's something we have been doing.
That's a tremendously good idea. Thanks for that.
Evelyn.
Yeah, just wanted to find out when this North thing, the new scheme, when is it starting?
1st of April, it becomes live when Kettering Borough Council ceases to exist on March the 31st.
That's 1st April 2021.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Simon.
Yeah, just a question for Dan again. I think, you know, having a stores and a workshop, obviously, I think it is a no-brainer. I think it's an excellent idea. I just wondered, because we work with contractors as well, if they're out of sight and they can't get a part themselves, are they able to go contact the stores, your stores, and is there a way of cross-charging for a part if we've got a part that they need to fit on one of our tenants' items, whatever it is?
Through you, Chair.
Mm-hmm.
What we would tend to find with the contractors is because it's planned work, there shouldn't really be that need for it. So all the responsive repairs are done through ourselves. So it's unlikely a contractor would be in that situation. But and it's actually an interesting point. Something that came up at the end of lockdown, plaster was in very short supply, and Lovell's actually contacted us. They were struggling to get plaster for Hamilton House to finish the stairwells there. And because we had a stores and because we were sort of seen as a good customer by our suppliers, we actually got first refusal on some plaster that came up. So we were actually able to offer that to Lovell's and recharge them accordingly to enable them to finish off Hamilton House. So it's not something we would do routinely, but yeah, again, another example of where we were able to secure something that somebody else couldn't.
Yeah, I just wondered if there was an option there, like, you know, that you could sort of use just in case. I know, you know, I've often had contractors come here and they haven't got parts, you know, but they've never sort of said, you know, we can contact the stores at Kettering Borough Council, see if they've got a part, you know, but at least the option's there if they can.
Yeah, like I said, we try and do the work in house wherever possible on the responsive. So on plan works, that's the only time I can think of contractors likely to be coming out. If it was say on oil, it's unlikely we're going to carry that part anyway, because we don't tend to carry the parts for the oil boilers. So, but yeah, it's certainly something. If there is a contractor there, there might be the possibility that we would have something if they were struggling.
No, that's okay. If most of the work's done by our guys anyway, so you know,
yeah,
not a problem. But no, that's fine. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, thank you.
Hamid, you've got your hand raised. Did you want
Yeah,
to?
I just want to ask you about the Geddington. What happened to Geddington? They didn't mention a thing about the bungalows. There's one bungalow is empty for last 3 months, and they're not doing any work at all. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Hamid.
So nobody doing nothing on that bungalow at all. Number 8. It's been empty for last 3 to 4 months. And people want to go to get that bungalow. So can I get that answer from Don?
Through you, Chair. Firstly, number 8. What's the street in Geddington?
Paul's Close.
Paul Close. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I'd need to go away. I haven't got the current voids to hand. We do have some voids that we aren't able to work on straight away. So the larger voids team, it could be linked to that. I don't know this particular property, so I'd have to look into it and come back to you.
Yeah, but that property is empty for last 3 months.
Yeah.
And they got all the things in there, in kitchen, bathroom, all the stuff is there. They're lying there for last 3 months. Nobody come to do it, you know.
Okay, like I said, I'll have to take that one away.
Yeah, Hamid, Dan will get back to you on that one.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Dan? No?
Thank you.
Oh. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, so last of the information items, the Housing Strategy and Solutions update from Carly.
I've also got a presentation, which I think Callum's just loading. So I'm just going to provide an update for the Tenants Forum on the activity and trends in the Council's Housing General Fund function, which is delivered by our Strategy and Solutions team. So in that, I'm just going to touch upon some current homelessness trends and data from the past 6 months. Talk a little bit about rough sleeping and what we've been doing there with regards to our approach further to COVID-19. Update you on our new private rented sector access scheme and what that is. Talk very briefly around our allocation scheme keyways, specifically the work we've been doing to devise a new North-Northants scheme, and finally provide an update on the latest position as to where we're at with developing new build council housing in Kettering. Thank you. Okay, so the first slide just shows the demand on our housing options service. The blue line there is the number of approaches that the team sees each week. That has continued to average of around 25 new approaches for homeless assistance every week. The red line at the bottom is the number of households that we place into temporary accommodation each week. And over the past year, that's averaged at around 2 per week. It did drop down to 1 during lockdown, perhaps unsurprisingly. Next slide. These pie charts just show some of the changing trends in terms of the reasons that people are approaching us as homeless. And again, perhaps to be expected, the pie chart on the right shows so far this financial year, we are seeing an increase in homelessness as a result from relationship breakdown, domestic abuse, and family and friend evictions, and fewer homeless approaches due to the ending of existing social or privately rented tenancies, unsurprisingly due to the current eviction ban. Okay, next slide. This graph I'm sure you've seen before, which shows the number of households that we accommodate in temporary accommodation, and it shows the downward trend in terms of the council's use of temporary accommodation. As at today, we have 87 households in temporary accommodation, which is significantly less than the peak figure we reached around August last year of 234. So that gives you an idea of how much work the team has been doing to reduce our reliance on temporary accommodation. The colours in that graph represent the different types of temporary accommodation that our households are accommodated in. So you can see the blue at the bottom, that's the households accommodated in bed and breakfast accommodation. We almost eliminated our use of P&B, but the last few weeks we've had a bit of a surge from single people, and I think we've got 7 households in B&B as at today, but I'm confident that we can get that down to, you know, a handful again. And as the overall numbers in temporary accommodation reduce, so does our reliance on council stock for temporary accommodation, which is represented by that purple section of the bar chart. So that's positive. And in terms of figures, we've currently got just 44 households temporarily accommodated in council properties, which compared to a figure of around 120 at our peak. Okay, next slide. So this just looks at the ways that we've managed to reduce our use of temporary accommodation, and it's the combined result of many different factors and interventions that formed part of a temporary accommodation reduction action plan that we implemented in July last year. It focused on move-on options for people in temporary accommodation and removing some of the blockages to that. Leona spoke earlier about the capacity of our supported housing scheme has increased during COVID-19. And one of the benefits is that one of our tenancy support workers has been working intensively with some of our more temporary accommodation tenants with complex needs to help them address things like debt and things like that that will help preventing them moving on into settled housing. So that's proved really, really successful. Okay, next slide. This graph shows by quarter, since the Homelessness Reduction Act came into force in April 2018, the number of positive outcomes in terms of cases where the Housing Options team have managed to successfully prevent or relieve homelessness for our customers. It shows, as the team got to grips with the new homeless legislation, we increased our number of positive outcomes. You can see Q1 of this year, that's dropped off slightly as our ability to prevent homelessness into new tenancies was severely compromised due to COVID-19. But in terms of the current quarter, we're back on track to get up to that higher level, which we want to achieve. Okay. Right, this slide contains quite a lot of information, so bear with me. There's been a lot going on in the field of rough sleeping relating to coronavirus. So there's been a significant change to our approach in terms of how we address rough sleeping and assist rough sleepers in Kettering. So at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were required to protect rough sleepers by bringing everyone in, the government called it. We had preempted that and realised the unsuitability of shared sleeping spaces in terms of our night shelter. So behind the scenes, we were already working on a plan to accommodate all of our service users and rough sleepers from the night shelter into self-contained properties. So we had a bit of a head start there, which helped us to meet the government's target of bringing everybody in, 15 people in Kettering, by the 30th of March. So what we also did, keep safe packs and move-in packs, they're the names that we gave to our packs of essential items for rough sleepers. So where we had a small number of rough sleepers refuse offers of accommodation, we provided keep safe packs, sleeping bags, hand gel, information sheets on coronavirus, that kind of thing. And our move-in packs were for those that we accommodated to give basic supplies, food, and do all we can to help them to stay indoors, you know, during the lockdown period. So just as important as bringing everybody in by the end of March, and perhaps more important, was keeping everybody in. So we had to work closely with lots of different partners, most significantly Accommodation Concern, who have worked excellently with us to support some of our accommodated rough sleepers, but also health partners, substance misuse agencies, Northamptonshire Police. It really has been a multi-agency effort to support these vulnerable rough sleepers to sustain the accommodation that we've given them. We've also recruited a new rough sleeper coordinator who is helping to coordinate the various agencies and teams involved in this effort into a really cohesive service offer for this client group. The turnover of rough sleepers in our area is quite high. We regularly see new rough sleepers, so we also needed a mechanism to identify new people sleeping rough in our area. So what we've been doing since the pandemic via Accommodation Concern is conducting twice weekly outreach counts in the early hours of the morning to physically look for people that are bedded down. And that data that is gathered in terms of who we find has helped inform the next steps and bring us all together to try and engage that rough sleeper to move away from rough sleeping. So in terms of next steps, I think it's important to say that our new approach isn't just a temporary one because of coronavirus. It's been a really important lesson that we've learned and an approach that we want to continue. Rough sleepers are some of the most socially excluded, vulnerable people in our society, and you can't get a more acute form of homelessness than sleeping rough. So we intend to continue to exercise our discretionary powers to accommodate this vulnerable group. We've got an annual winter count planned for November, which is a government requirement. And also in October, what we plan to do is update our website information into easy to read format that clearly sets out what our commitment to address rough sleeping is and what our winter plan is in light of the fact that we're not going to have a shared sleeping space night shelter this year. Sorry, that was a long one. Right, next slide. They're just a couple of images of the keep safe packs and move-in packs that the team put together and which took up our Lahnstein room until we were kindly asked for it back a few weeks ago. Next slide. And just some current data in terms of rough sleepers. So at the moment, we've got 13 rough sleepers accommodated on a discretionary basis in self-contained properties. So far since lockdown, we have assisted 34 rough sleepers into settled accommodation solutions. We had 4 rough sleepers actually found bedded down on the streets on the most recent count, of which 2 of those were found for the first time. So that demonstrates the regular turnover of new cases that we do see. And we've only had 1 rough sleeper evicted from temporary accommodation so far. It's still one too many, but it's inevitable. And I would say it's the lowest eviction rate across the whole county. So I think that's credit to the staff that are intensively supporting those customers to keep their tenancies. Next slide. Okay, so moving on to our new private rented sector access scheme, which is called Kettering Lettings Plus. So this is a new scheme to assist people that are homeless or threatened with homelessness into privately rented properties. And it provides financial and practical incentives to landlords to work with us. As well as obviously preventing homelessness and reducing our use on temporary accommodation, it also allows us to improve standards in the private rented sector through delivering landlord improvement grants for landlords to bring the properties up to the required standard, and it also serves to reduce the number of empty homes. So far, feedback from landlords, early signs are that this scheme is popular, and we've already utilised it to prevent or relieve the homelessness for 13 households so far. Thank you. So moving on to the allocation scheme, which John touched upon in his Future Northants update. Whilst there is no legal requirement to have an allocation scheme for vesting day on the 1st of April, that is what we do want to achieve, and we are on track to achieve that. So what the allocation scheme will do is set out how the North Northamptonshire Council's how North Northamptonshire Council housing and all housing association stock in the area will be allocated. So we're at the point where we've got a draft policy. It's been easier for North Northants compared to West Northants because, as I'm sure you're aware, Kettering, Corby and Wellingborough already share a Keyways scheme, and our policies are broadly similar. So the new draft scheme for North Northants is based largely on the current Keyways scheme, which some of you might be familiar with. So we have a draft document. We're aiming to go out to formal consultation by the end of this month. So as John alluded to, I'm quite happy to come back to the next Tenants Forum and go through this document and the proposals in a bit more detail to enable Tenants Forum to provide, to feed into that consultation. We're also exploring the viability of implementing an upgrade to the IT, which will improve the customer website experience and streamline our back office processes. Whilst that may not be delivered for vesting day, if not, subject to relevant approvals, we're hoping that we can deliver that in the near future too. Okay. And the final item I'm going to talk about very briefly is just to update you on the council house new build schemes that the team are working hard to deliver. So here you've got the two plans for Scott Road and Albert Street. As John mentioned, the Executive Committee last night approved the contract award for these two schemes, which are going to deliver 28 units in total, and we are hoping should be starting on site in November. And final slide. Thank you. And work also continues on the Grange Road Methodist Church site there, which we're going to bring that scheme to executive and full council hopefully later in the year. That one's currently with planning. That's going to deliver 8 units, and we're hoping that that will start on site by in this financial year. And the Lawrences in Desborough don't have an image of that for the public domain at the moment, but an alternative scheme has been designed which retains all the existing buildings on that site for conversion to housing. So we are in the process of considering the financial viability of that new design. And if that's viable, then we'll look to start the planning process and have conversations with Homes England in terms of seeking grant funding for that scheme. Okay, next slide. And that's it from me. Back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Carly. Has anyone got any questions? Maggie?
Thank you, Chair. All good news, of course, as in the previous reports, another amazing set of statistics in difficult circumstances. Just a couple of questions. 7 people in B&B currently. I didn't think we would be allowed to use B&B because it's shared accommodation, isn't it? So I don't quite know how that works. Also, of the 15 rough sleepers that have managed to stay in, will they have the opportunity to work towards keeping their tenancy?
Okay, through you, Chair. So the first question in terms of B&B, the B&Bs that we utilise, they're not shared facilities in terms of bathrooms, so they're all en suite counsellor. But what I would say is the households we have in there are all single people, and they're in there for a very short period. The team work exceptionally hard to get them out into alternative accommodation as soon as possible.
How can they cook for themselves?
It's not ideal. We try not to use B&B wherever possible, but for example, out of hours service have to utilise B&B in emergencies, but that is what it is for emergency placements only for the short period of time.
But they've got no cooking facilities.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got to, if it's an emergency and we haven't got anything else, Maggie, we've got to put them somewhere.
Yeah, I just don't know how they can manage it.
Like Carly said, it's not ideal, and they're only in there for a very short a period of time, so we can get somewhere with a kitchen so that they are okay. But it's unfortunately, if it's late at night and we've got nowhere else we can put them, we've got to give them a roof over the head. We can't bed them down in the council office.
Well, it still wouldn't have been a cook.
Well, there is kitchen areas, so they could cook.
Well, yes.
Oddly enough. I'm not
Mayor's
proposing
parlour.
we do that, John. Don't worry.
I could suggest the mayor's parlour.
Sorry, I think the question was around the move on for rough sleepers. Yeah, so
yes,
our rough sleepers are accommodated. Some of them were actually accommodated in council stock. Others were in general fund units that had been acquired for use of temporary accommodation. So in the case of council properties, if the rough sleepers do engage, they work hard and make positive progress to make their temporary tenancies a success. It is an option that we will convert that into a long-term home for them. For those accommodated in our temporary acquisition properties, the same applies. They have the opportunity for a long-term housing solution, but that will be somewhere else via our allocation scheme.
And they know that that's the goal that they can achieve.
Absolutely, and that's been a huge incentive for many of them. There's some lovely stories in terms of the impact that this approach has had on people's lives, which is why
maybe anonymously that's something to share at a later date. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else got any? Simon.
Hi, Carly. Just want to ask, with the folks that are in that have been accommodated, is there any link to any services to sort of get them back into work, that sort of thing? You know, if they're unemployed, you know, or if they need any help, or are we just sort of, you know, looking after their housing needs at the moment?
Yeah, so through the chair, absolutely, yeah. When we accommodate a rough sleeper, they go through quite a rigorous assessment in terms of their, not just their housing needs, but their related support needs. That includes employment, education, training, health needs, all sorts. So the support workers via accommodation concern provide a very generic service depending on that customer's needs. And actually we have had some successful outcomes in terms of employment in 2 cases that I can think of off the top of my head. They were 2 ineligible rough sleepers that had no recourse to public funds. So to have any chance of becoming eligible in the future, they needed to seek employment. And like I said, yeah, we've had success in that regard.
Fantastic. Thanks, Carly.
Andrew.
Yeah, very briefly. Thanks, Chair. Is it the case that this sort of accommodation first approach is helpful in all these other ways that Simon mentioned in getting employment and so on, that these people, having been accommodated, are more likely to want to go for training, etc. You probably haven't got enough data yet, but is it starting to show that approach is working?
Through the chair, absolutely. I'm not going to pretend that it is in every case. You know, we do have some very chaotic individuals that we have to work hard to address their basic needs first. But I've also got stories of some very long-term entrenched rough sleepers who, through the provision of housing first, have got that stability to then address other support needs, whether that be their mental health, and go on to manage successful tenancies. So it definitely does work in a number of cases.
Okay. Anything else?
Let's hope it continues.
Yeah, fully agree. They've got my support.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Carly. So on to feedback then. So Connect, Leona.
Sorry, I was still thinking about what Carly was talking about. Connect, we published our summer edition in July, and that was a little bit late because of the impact of COVID. So we are getting ready to meet as an editorial panel for the next edition. So I have no summary at the moment, but if anybody has any ideas of articles they would like to see in Connect, please just let me know. You all know my email address, but give me a shout now if there's something important you want to see in it. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Fiona. Do we have an update for the Tenants Overview and Scrutiny panel?
If I could take that as well, Chair. I do apologise. I forgot to give the apologies of Martin Lund, who was on holiday, so I do apologise. As I said earlier, we are meeting virtually almost weekly, and performance updates on a monthly basis. I don't know if there's anything that Simon wishes to update the forum on.
Sorry, yeah. No, I was just going to say that we've just been monitoring, haven't we, the COVID situation and how the service has been performing, which has been fantastic, considering the you know, the problems that they've had to face in the past 6 months. Yeah, we've been busy sort of keeping an eye on everything and sort of, you know, making sure that you know, we show a face every week if we can, just so that people know that, you know, we are on the ball with it. So, and also we've got, you know, plenty of things going on, such as the Homes for the Future coming up in Rushden and etc. And you know, we're sort of involved in all that as well.
Excellent. Okay, cheers for that. Any other business? No.
I'm looking forward to the Lawrence's site proposals coming forward.
So am I.
Because that's been a long time, that one, hasn't it?
The original plan we had was I really liked. I haven't seen the updated plan yet. Perhaps John will let me have a sneak look at it.
They're keeping it away from me, Chair.
Oh, that was while we're on about housing, just so that the members know, that was approved by exec to go forward to full council next week, I believe. So
yeah, I was watching.
Excellent. Hope you didn't spot the deliberate mistake.
Oh no.
Good. Excellent. Okay, prize draw. Are we doing a prize draw, Callum? Oh, who's going to pull it from there?
From his attic.
Okay, David.
Okay, it's slim pickings, so you've got a 1 in 5 chance.
Simon.
Yay!
Hey. Well done, Simon.
You're shopping.
Thank you very much, folks. Thank you.
I will send it out to you, Simon.
Thank you. I can't go out and spend it. I'm still isolated.
Save it for Christmas.
I'm sure someone will help you.
Yeah, save it for Christmas. Thank you, guys.
So meeting date for the next meeting is the 21st of October.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing you there. Hopefully we can get a few more people to come to this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you all.